Hey, we're on, Bob.
Blue-white breakdown. Thursday. I think we're in November. Bob Flounders and Dave Jones talking Penn State-Nebraska. Dave, I hope you're doing well. Hope things are good out in your neck of the woods, your neck of the nape. Everything good?
All the leaves are gone. I noticed this morning the rain took them all away. It's officially November.
Great.
How does it feel to not be going to your favorite college program, the Nebraska Cornhuskers?
I knew at some point this was coming up.
Why not get it out of the way now?
I'm good with it. And it's going to be Greg Pickle and Joe Hermit heading to Omaha and then Lincoln for an 11 a.m. their time kick, Penn State, Nebraska. Dave, we think the game's going to be played, but I think Penn State's still waiting to see how the testing comes out.
Yeah, there's got to be
knocked with eight positive cases after they.
Did you read the thing about no contact tracing? I thought that was interesting in the Big Ten. I mean,
didn't you think right away that those guys were celebrating after they beat Penn State a little bit too much when they got back, and maybe that's what happened?
We don't know that. We don't know.
I'm saying, but didn't you think that? I thought that.
I think they knew they were going to win about the middle of first quarter, didn't you? I mean, they played like they knew they were going to win.
Yeah. But hopefully Penn State will play Nebraska. They're trying to avoid an 0-4 start. We'll make our picks later, Dave, but let's just start with a couple of things, not necessarily game-related. Journey Brown's career's over. Very unfortunate. I think there's still a silver lining, and they caught the issue because it doesn't always get detected, and the worst could have happened. He was a tremendous player at Penn State, especially last year. But my overriding thought is I'm just glad they were able to detect the
but did you read his narrative that came over? Boy, what a heart-wrenching thing. I mean, we who are not engulfed in trying to make a living out of football, and that kid was going to make a healthy living, was he not? Yeah. Where was he projected? At second or third round?
I think that anymore you don't really see a lot of running backs go in the first round. But I think if Journey had any kind of year like he did the second half of last year, he was going to probably be a second, maybe a third round pick somewhere around where Miles Sanders went.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about
great with Eagles.
Yeah, you're talking about life-changing money, and it's just all gone. He's a smart kid. He'll be okay, but it just seems so unfair. And the narrative, I'm sure people will read it eventually on how he started loving football in the fourth grade, and then his life changed as a sophomore, and he really fell in love with it then. And it just is it's very, very sad from a personal standpoint, not from Penn State's standpoint. This is a monolith. This is a kid who had a chance to make a life-changing financial impact on his whole family, and it's just gone. And that sucks. It really does.
Dave, I can still, even though it was late December, I can still remember sitting in the Jerry World Stadium watching the Cotton Bowl, and he did some things in that game. I know the Memphis defense wasn't great, but
no, it wasn't.
You could tell he was all grown up as a runner. He was doing some things. He'd always been a guy that was fast, and he was just physically manhandling the Memphis defense. And you just thought, boy, he's just going to be, he's going to come back this year, and he's going to follow up on what he did last year, and he's just going to be one of the running backs they're talking about coming off the board first. And
you were right about him all the time. I always liked Noah Cain better when they were all young. But you kind of identified him as a combination of speed and power and size that was going to mature as he matured. And he would have been, he was in a mold of like Tony Hunt and Miles Sanders in a between the tackles pro back who might have been better than either one of them. What do you think? Yeah.
I mean, I think for sure. And, and it's funny. He was a 3-star recruit from Meadville.
You never know.
Claim to fame faster on the prep level than Leroy Burrell. He broke Leroy Burrell's 100-meter track record. And he was really a bit of a project at a small school, worked diligently in the weight room to get stronger in his lower half with Dwight Galt And, last year, it's Dave, I mean, we're still talking. I still just want to talk about him. At the start of 2019, everyone was, including myself, thought Ricky Slade, oh boy, Penn State, not gonna miss a beat. It's gonna be Ricky Slade. And then it's Noah Cain, and he gets hurt. Journey Brown waits patiently. They finally give him the lead role at Minnesota. They lose the game, but he had a tremendous game against the Gophers. He did some nice things against Ohio State in the second half when they were behind. Got 100 yards against Indiana. Everyone gets 100 yards against Rutgers, it seems, in 2019. And then the bowl game, and you're like, where did this come from? But the more you looked at what he did, it wasn't really a fluke, and he really put his time in and worked very hard to get to this point in his life.
You might as well transition now into what Penn State didn't have, because they didn't have him. Now, you could say, how much do you put on the lack of Penn State running game, especially against defenses like Indiana and Maryland, that are, even in the way Indiana is going now and Maryland is going now, these are not great defensive fronts by any stretch. Indiana is better than Maryland's, but I mean, I saw Minnesota chewing up Maryland, and they depend on the running game, but that is not a great defensive front by any means. So how much of this lack of a running game do you put on the offensive line, and how much on the lack of Journey Brown and Noah Cain?
It's all related, but James Franklin actually said on Tuesday, and you don't think about it enough. Penn State really doesn't have a runner. I thought Devin Ford would be a little bit better than he has been. They don't have a runner that can consistently break tackles, and they don't have a runner that can consistently make guys miss in the hole. Now a running back is going to eventually have to kind of have to do some of those things, because it can't all just be on the offensive line to give them just a clean path into the secondary. And watching this team, I don't see that coming from either Devin Ford. I don't think the freshmen are ready. Sean Clifford can't make anyone miss. And it's just when the other team knows you can't get more than 1 or 2 yards a pop on the ground, I just think it really, really hamstrings how you call a game. And it also impacts how defenses, they don't respect the Penn State running game, and they shouldn't.
Because that moves the safeties and linebackers around in the middle. You have to have that respect. To me, Holmes looks better. Even Lee has looked better than Ford. To me, Holmes looks like he needs a shot. That's the one thing. And the other thing is, this offensive line was supposed to be a lot better. They're not getting push against Maryland. How can that be?
I know. It's been one of those years that it gets worse by the week, Dave. It gets worse by the week. In theory, they go out to Nebraska and might be able to do some things, but I am starting to see some things in Sean Clifford that unfortunately I saw in Christian Hackenberg. Late in 2014 and throughout 2015. He looks to me like he's shell-shocked.
I went back this morning and watched that series when it was 7-0. And you remember they had first and goal, was it, at the 9, something like that?
Yeah.
And the second, third, and fourth down, they had second and 6, I think, at the 9. The second, third, and fourth down plays by him were, one time he's just getting rid of the ball real quick. Another time he flat out missed Freiermuth and threw, you remember, in the flat, he just flew it over his head.
Yeah.
These are simple throws. He at least could have hit Freiermuth. And then the fourth down play, which I would not have taken, the 4th and 3. Would you have done that? I wouldn't.
No. Yeah. And then throw that, and then throw a fade.
And then throw a fade into the corner.
Yeah.
It's hard for a struggling quarterback, a guy who's not struggling, let alone a guy who's struggling, to hit that pass. It has to be perfect. And that made none of that whole sequence made any sense to me. And then Raheem Jarrett got his second touchdown. They're in the 14-0 hole. It was just a mess all the way around.
Yeah, I just think that I don't know what the kind of feedback you're getting, but everyone wants to see Will Levis, and I just wonder,
what's that going to do? How is Will Levis going to be any better behind this offensive line the way they're playing? That's my point.
What I would say is this, Dave. It's not just that. So not only has Sean Clifford been inaccurate and he's taking a pounding, and they're running him too much. But Dave, what I would say is I would try Will Levis. Sean Clifford is holding on to the ball
I know.
too long, and he is not looking past his first read. And I just think that when you see that,
I'm not quibbling. I'm not quibbling with the decision to go to Levis at all.
Yeah, I just think that he needs
a break. I wonder how much more success it's going to be.
He needs some kind of break, and I just think that, in fairness to the other guys that are out there, putting it on the line, I think at the very least you got to at least try Levis, because what we see, I think the last 2 games have been enough. We've seen enough of Sean to know that
I agree.
Something has to change.
I just wonder if the fans, this program above all has always, their favorite quarterback has always been backup quarterback. I mean, how many years have we seen this? They wanted, didn't they want Anthony Morelli instead of Daryl Clark? You know, or no, it was the other. They wanted Morelli
behind Morelli
instead of Michael Robinson.
I
think that was
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
When he was originally struggling. Yeah. Can you believe that? You know?
I was going to say I've gained a little bit of I'm starting to get a better appreciation watching the Penn State offenses, even a better appreciation for Trace McSorley surviving 3 years as the starting quarterback, because the punishment is always good. It just seems like whoever the quarterback is going to really have to absorb a beating, and sometimes it has a very debilitating effect mentally and physically. And for Trace to survive 3 years of that, and it's not just Penn State.
Well, he avoided a lot of it too.
He did, but he also ran a lot. He also took a lot of shots. Yeah. He played through a lot of injuries, and it's not easy to do.
At least he was able to avoid a lot of it, which is what it's the difference between my nephew Josh Jackson at Maryland not being able to avoid free rushers, and Tungavailoa being able to avoid a lot of pressure with a couple steps. He can extend plays. Trace used to do that. You know, you remember what a mess that offensive line was in the middle of 2016. He would just duck inside. He figured out ways to duck inside, get some free air, and keep his eyes forward. The amazing part about McSorley was he was able to keep his eyes forward even after getting hit, even after taking all that punishment. And you remember how many free rushers were coming in on both him and Barkley in 2016 and 2017. Sean Clifford can't do that. He can't avoid these guys. He's getting hit much more. And that has an effect. It has the same effect it had on Hackenberg, which is what you already mentioned.
Yeah.
They both are holding the ball too long. That seems counterintuitive, but it's not. If you know what it's like to be hit back there, you're almost defiant in the way you're going to take that hit. You're going to hold onto the ball a little too long to almost subconsciously prove, I'm not afraid of getting hit. I'm not afraid of these guys. Well, then you've got an 8-yard sack, and it's not good for anybody. It's not good for your body. And you're preoccupied. You can't help but be preoccupied and have your concentration interrupted by that kind of thing over and over and over. And that's what I call it, PTSD in quarterbacks. And that's what Sean Clifford looks like. He does look a lot like Hackenberg.
Dave, if we had a do-over, and I'm in desperate need of a Penn State prediction do-over after I think I picked them 7-1. What do you think is realistic for them the rest of the way? Just the last 5 games. Let's throw the first 3. They are what they are. They're 0-3. They got 5 games left. They got to play at Nebraska. They got Iowa at home. They got to go to Michigan. They host Michigan State, and they got to go to Rutgers. Now, that's not in order, but those 5 games, based upon what you've seen, and then they're going to play a Champions Week game, which they probably want to rename.
God, talk about a do-over. There's where we need the do-over.
The 5 regular season games, what's best case for Penn State?
In a normal year, let's go through these. If they were playing, let's say they were 2-1 at this point, and they're playing normally. They lost to Ohio State. They managed to win that Indiana game. They weren't so downtrodden and morose when they played Maryland, and they managed to win that game.
Yeah.
Well, Nebraska is a win because Nebraska is not a good team. You talk about a fan base that wants a head on a platter. It's the Nebraska fan base with Scott Frost now. They've had enough, and this has been 3 years of this.
Correct.
And what is he, 8-19? I can't remember what the 9-17. 9-17.
Central Florida. It's not Central Florida.
So they have no confidence. They have a quarterback controversy. They're going to be, it looks like, starting a backup quarterback without an injury, Luke McCaffrey for Adrian Martinez, and that should be a win. But in this situation, well, Penn State is favored by 3. We're going to get to the picks later, but I picked Nebraska. I did because they don't have to make the trip, and they've actually been playing fairly well in spots. Like they didn't look dead in the water at Northwestern. No. They were ahead in the second half. They had a chance to tie the game at the end. They were in the game, which Penn State was not. Then you've got Iowa coming here. Well, Iowa hasn't played very well either, but they played really well their last game against Michigan State. Before that, they were blowing games. Now they're on a roll. You would think they will probably continue that roll, at least in some respect, in 2 weeks. So where that would have been a win, I mean, Penn State's always beaten Iowa at home recently. All of a sudden, that looks like a loss. We have to see what happens with the Nebraska game before you can call that. Michigan, what I'm saying is all these teams have not played very well. Nebraska, Iowa, Michigan. Iowa's 1-2, Nebraska's 0-2, Michigan's 1-2. In a normal year, all 3 of these are very winnable games, but this isn't a normal year. And this thing has a chance to start feeding on itself if they don't get a win. They really, really need a win in this game and in the next game, or it could go south in a hurry. That's my opinion. So I'm not going to make a call. I don't think you can make a call this season, but I think we're looking at best at 3-6.
I think the loser of this game, I think the floor falls out from underneath the pro. Yeah. Whoever loses this game, it's going to be a pretty big drop.
And Zach Mills isn't walking through that door. That was the last time they started 0-4 was 2001, and then Zach Mills saved the season.
Okay, so before we talk about, there's one other thing I want to ask you about. It's the blue-white breakdown, Dave Jones, Bob Flounders. It's kind of related, but it's really not. Dave, I want to take you back in time to 2012. Bill O'Brien's first year, those plucky Penn State Nittany Lions start 0-2. They get it together. They develop some playmakers. McGloin gets it going. They go into Lincoln, Nebraska against my man Bo Pelini, and they play them. They play them off their feet. They're in position to win the game. They get hosed probably on a call.
Was that John O'Neill's crew? Was that the O'Neill crew?
I think it was. Matt Lehman, it was a fumble. Your thoughts on that game and that season, and will we see anything like that in Lincoln?
What kind of question is that? What everyone remembers about that game was how horrible that booth review was. Remember we had I was constructing a media you have to decide who in the media is going to go talk to the officials, and they never tell you anything. But I mean, who was it? Was a Matt Lehman on the goal line, right?
Matt Lehman.
It was clearly the ball.
Newport High School. Matt Lehman.
He was from Newport.
Yeah,
refreshing Newport. That's what we used to call it. Newport refreshes. It was clear that the ball was.
You were apoplectic in the press box.
I can't stand incompetence. That was just blatant incompetence. And people, what cracks me up about people who are of zealous fans is that they always think that there's a conspiracy. There's a conspiracy. They just don't understand how much blatant incompetence there is out there. Very often, what looks like conspiracy is just incompetence.
Yeah.
And we've seen it over and over. I mean, I've seen the call against Michigan, and that's another thing they say, that Michigan and Ohio State get all the calls. The call against Michigan in the Michigan State game. Did you see that?
I did not.
Oh my God. They just didn't call it correctly on a fumble, and they wouldn't overturn it. There was another one last week where who was getting screwed. I mean, it was Indiana against Michigan. Just a couple of ridiculously bad calls that they would not overturn. This isn't. So that's what that Nebraska game was. I don't even know.
Matt Lehman didn't fumble. He didn't fumble. That's it. They should have won the game. I'll admit it.
Yeah.
That's all I was getting at.
Bo Pelini's always going to get that call, though, Bob.
How'd you like that, my man? How'd you like that call, my man? Huh? Dave and I have a running Bo Pelini impersonation. He is not the nicest man in the world, and he's getting his just desserts as LSU's defensive coordinator. I would say
I should have taken a little pop at that. I forgot. Yeah, what have they given up? 44 plus in 3 straight games, 3 different games.
They gave up like 3,000 yards to Mississippi State in the opener.
To middle of the pack teams, really. All
right, let's get back to reality. Let's talk about the matchup. How you think the game might be decided. You've already tipped your hand, but everyone knows you. I think by now that you probably picked Nebraska. What kind of game do you see in terms of high scoring, low scoring, and what do you think is going to be the deciding?
What is the number? 56? I'm picking the under.
Yeah, I like the under a lot. I can't see a lot of points in this one.
Yeah, because you're going to have 2 backup quarterbacks. It really appears that Will Levis is going to start. Do you agree with that?
Ooh. I don't think he's going to start. I think it's a very short leash for.
Okay. All right. They're going to give him one more series, 2 more series.
I'd say 2. Do you know how loyal James is to his starting quarterback?
I got no problem with that.
Okay.
I got no problem with it, especially in a season like this. It's like, what the hell? It sends a message that you're loyal to your guy, and which I think is a more important message than worrying about whether you go 4-5 or 2-7. Okay. So I think eventually we're going to have 2 backup quarterbacks. Luke McCaffrey, who's Ed McCaffrey's youngest son, younger than Christian, and younger than who am I forgetting? Who was the Dylan McCaffrey, the former.
How athletic is that family? How athletic is that family?
Mom was a sprinter. Did you know that?
Do you know his uncle was Billy the Kid at Duke and Vanderbilt, Billy McCaffrey.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, it's like they're athletes all over that family.
Yeah, and all 4 of the boys were really good players. So this is the last one of all of them. He's going to see a lot of run. He's a slick runner, so Penn State has to be aware of planned quarterback draws. I think there'll be a lot of them, and A-gap keepers. And he's better than that than Adrian Martinez, where you talk about PTSD.
Yeah,
he has it under Frost. I mean, I really thought he was going to be a good quarterback, and he just, under Frost, he is not developed. They have not been – Scott Frost used to be an adventurous, fun play caller, both as the coordinator at Oregon and at Central Florida. If you watch their games, I don't know what your opinion about him is, but it's almost like he's tried to fit into the mold of the conservative Nebraska guy. He's turned into Frank Solich on us. What is going on there? So
from what
they are in dysfunction too.
Yes.
Yeah, really predictable. Not much fun at all. And whenever Luke McCaffrey has come in, we're like, okay, here comes the keeper down in the red zone. Except the next to last series they had, he threw a ball off his own offensive lineman's helmet for essentially a game-clinching pick for Northwestern. But they've got as many problems as Penn State does. But I think Luke McCaffrey has gotten a little more run than Levis has, so I give that more credence. Penn State's not going to have to make the trip in there. It's one of the longest trips in the Big Ten.
Right.
And that's always a factor, whether it's fans or not. I'm seeing it Nebraska 28-23, but it could go either way. Yeah.
As you've well documented, I have a history as a Nebraska fan.
Why is that? Why don't you tell people why? Because I still am not clear why.
Dave,
why a kid from Easton who should be just reveling in guys like Matt and
Well, Dave, you're still talking. It was Bethlehem, PA, was where I grew up. The year, Penn State fans, was 1972, and I was just starting to become a sports fan. So there weren't a lot of TV games on to begin with. It's not like now. You were lucky to see one NFL or two NFL games on Sundays, and college football was hit or miss. It was a Thanksgiving. I was in Delran, New Jersey at my Aunt Mary's house.
Was this the Chris Schenkel era, probably?
It was the Chris Schenkel era, and the Oklahoma-Nebraska game was on. I think it might have been either the Friday or the Thursday, and it was in Lincoln. And I was in a phase where I would watch a game, and I was young and impressionable. I still am impressionable, Dave. And I just said, I'm going to pick one of these two teams and stick with it. So I picked Nebraska.
Whoever wins.
They lost the game.
Oh.
Greg Pruitt, it was the year after the greatest game ever, that game of the
72,
century.
yes.
They lost the game like 20-17 or something. Like Greg Pruitt went off. Anyway, I stuck with them. It's always been that way. As far as this game goes, I agree with you. Penn State's going to struggle with an athletic quarterback. The problem is Nebraska can't score. They don't have any touchdown passes.
What became of Wandale Robinson? It's like he's I know he's small and you can't hit him downfield, but it's like he doesn't exist. You know,
they had 3 points in the entire second half. They're going to run the ball on Penn State. They ran the ball on Ohio State. They ran the ball a little bit on Northwestern. You're right; they were in the Northwestern game. My worry with Penn State, and the reason I picked Nebraska 20-17. I think it's going to be
in an under, a clear under.
Dave, at some point, isn't a defense just going to put 4 guys on Jahan Dotson and say somebody else beat me? Because that's all they have. If Jahan Dotson doesn't have 150 receiving yards, I don't know what Penn State's going to be able to do on.
Well, I think Parker Washington's looked pretty good. He's looked pretty good.
Underneath receiver. You saw what happened when he tries to make fade catches in the end zone. He's real good underneath. But I'm just saying, Jahan Dotson's he's playing out of his mind.
All right.
He's playing out of his mind. I just don't think they can run the ball, and I do think that the quarterback play is just going to be too difficult to overcome. It has not. It's been just since the Indiana game. It just hasn't been good. The defense, I don't know what's going on there, man. 8 quarters of just poor play. It's not going to be as bad against Nebraska because Nebraska really can't throw.
They don't have the wideouts these guys do. Did you go back and look at those little tandems with Rakim Jarrett? And they just didn't. You got to pick whether you're going inside or outside. You start out zone, and then you're going to convert to man in those situations. And they're who was it? Castro Fields, and then who was
Lamont Wade and Daquan Hardy. The team doesn't look all that interested in tackling right now, and I think unless some things change, they've had some players play well on defense, but there's been some disappointments. 20-17 Huskers. Until Penn State shows me they can do something on offense, I just can't pick them. And you're right, Dave. I think that you could make a case that they could actually lose all of the remaining regular season games. They could also win 2 or 3 of them. The truth is probably somewhere in between. But Dave, if they start 0-4, it's going to be just it's going to be a struggle to get 1 or 2 wins the rest.
And you do need an igniter in that situation. If people do remember in 2001, that guy was Zach Mills. I mean, he was different.
Poker player.
Matt Seneca, and the Ohio State game. That year when they got over the top, and then they went on a run, man. They almost made a bowl game out of that. You need somebody, and I don't see that somebody on this team. Maybe we've missed it, but I don't see it. All right, real quick before we leave.
Yeah.
Do you want to go through the games again like we did last week?
Let's do it. How did we do last week?
I did 4-2, but I don't know how you. Yeah, I was 4-2 on my picks. I missed the 2 I missed real bad.
Did you chart me? Did you chart me?
No.
I thought that was the whole point.
I'm not. What am I, your caddy?
It's your idea.
You know, you do your own picks, my man. How about that? Okay.
All right, we got 2 minutes, or else Greg.
Go.
Go ahead.
You got Wisconsin, assuming they play. Wisconsin -4.5 at Michigan. I was supposed to tell you the line. You were supposed to guess the line. Oh well.
Yeah. You've already blown it. Yeah. Wisconsin is better than 5. Wisconsin will cover if they play.
Okay. Indiana at Michigan State. What's the line?
Ooh.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to say Indiana 6.
Pretty close. 7.
And
where do you put it?
I bet you Indiana wins but doesn't cover.
That makes sense to me.
Field goal game.
You know what the Northwestern Purdue line is at Purdue?
Mm-mm. Oh, it's at Purdue?
Yeah, at Purdue. Make the line.
It's going to be real small, if anything. And I'll say it's a pick 'em.
Northwestern -2.5.
Is Rondale more out?
Facing the same intimidating atmosphere at Ross A that they usually face. Is
Rondale more out for the year?
I suspect he has a hammy and he doesn't want to mess it up further for his NFL day.
Purdue wins the game outright by 4.
Yeah, it's about time for Northwestern to lose. Illinois at Rutgers.
Rutgers My man Greg Schiano, Rutgers. Rutgers by 10.
Yeah, it's 7, and you could see Rutgers rolling that up. I mean, they get ahead of a team. They're feeling good about themselves. They were fighting at Ohio State. They scored 27 in the horseshoe. And there's the counterpoint to this game. The Schiano is calling all sorts of crazy trick plays. You know,
playing with house money, man.
Yeah, and he's acting like it. And finally, you know what the line is for Penn State and Nebraska, I'm assuming, right?
It's down to 2 now, I think.
I saw 3.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
So you've already made that.
Hey, do me a favor, since it's your big idea, keep track of my picks. I think I was undefeated last week.
I don't have the tape, man. You got to write it.
Tape, Dave. Get the tape.
Write it down, man.
Hey, my man. It's your idea, my man. How about you follow through and execute your idea?
All right. Here's the last bet. Do you see the entire season coming off with the college football playoff? The way COVID's raging the country.
I think if it comes off, it's going to have to be delayed. I don't know how they're going to get it in. I think that there's going to be more. There's going to be more cancellations.
I agree. I just don't see how it's going to work.
You know what? The Big Ten might have had it right all along.
Well, you know what? This is what I've been writing all summer, and I've got my best friend is trained in epidemiology. He's a molecular biologist from Marquette, and he's been telling me about how they're firebombing this vaccine, and one of them was going to hit, and sure enough, one of them has hit, the one from Pfizer, and it's got 90% efficacy, and they're going to start having this ready for frontline care workers next month. You would think, the big money businesses, including college football, would probably get a hold of it by February. Yeah. Then you've got a March through May, through Memorial Day season, and you can put it on, maybe even have some fans. Wouldn't that be better than this,
I probably shouldn't have wound your watch there.
Well, geez, I mean, all these Urban Meyer guys saying, you can't have that, because they're stuck in their little systems and their little bubbles, and they can't. Jeff Brom had it right all along. Jeff Brom had a really good plan to do this, to limit contact, to scrap the usual plan of spring football, summer workouts, and get a good season in, and then delay next season a little bit. That would have been the plan, but no, we got to do things the way that we always did. Okay.
Dave, I'll talk to you soon. I'll talk to you after the Nebraska game.
You have been a delight.
I'll see you.